I'm Anna, and this is Jamie, and thank you for attending today. Jamie, do you want to do the welcome for us?
Thank you all for joining us on this, which is the first of a series of monthly conversations under the umbrella title of Change in a Crisis. And today we're going to be looking at aging, how we view aging as individuals, in our own communities, in society at large. And this is aging is something that we're all experiencing all of the time. I can guarantee you're all going to be 90 minutes older by the time this has ended. And the reason we're talking about aging today as well is also because of this book, The Power of Aging, which is written by Adam Duncan. So, and we're going to be discussing aging with a view to what this book shows us. And it demonstrates how we might change or alter our attitudes around aging as we grow older. And inevitably, any conversation around aging is going to also be about, is going to have elements of death within that, which seems to me often feels like the last taboo subject that we have. It makes me think of a line in the film Citizen Kane where it says, "Old age is the only disease we don't wish to be cured of." And therein lies the rub. And this view of old age as a kind of, as a disease, as something to be dreaded and feared. And can we reframe that in how we think about it? So enough from me at the moment. Anna's just going to go through a little bit of etiquette and housekeeping, and then we're going to start the conversation with our guests.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jamie. So yes, for those of you who didn't hear me earlier, the only people who will be visible throughout this series of conversations will be ourselves and the guest speakers. That's just to keep it smooth and to keep it clear. We will have an open video session towards the end. I'll remind you again then, so that if you don't want to be visible, you don't have to be. We will be recording this event. So again, if you don't want to appear, then make sure that your video is off at the end, and I'll remind you of that again later. If you have any questions or observations throughout all of this while people are talking, you can use the chat box, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen. Just type in there, and that will be reviewed by the wonderful Ben Cole, who's going to be doing all of the work in the background. He'll let us know what's being said. Jamie and I will read them out or direct those to the appropriate speaker. We might not be able to cover all of those questions, so don't worry if there is something burning that you'd really like to have answered. Adam is happy for you to email him, and he will share his email address probably in the chat box or towards the end of this. We'll be finishing at 12:30 on the dot. We will have a break in the middle, but for now, I think we will go over to introductions of our speakers.
We'll let the Adam, would you like to introduce yourself first, and then come back to us, and then we'll get the next person to introduce themselves.
And if you could just, each guest, tell us your name, a key fact about yourself, and your interest in age and aging. And we're going to aim for a minute apiece, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name's Adam Duncan, and my mum died in 2016, and I spent some time in the hospice, and it made me realize that there was some things that I wanted to explore, and I did some work with Hermione, who's on the panel here, and I've been on that journey ever since, really exploring how we can start a intelligent, useful conversation about growing older and change the paradigm around abject fear and disappointment with our aging bodies. That's me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Adam. Nicola, can we go over to you now, please?
Thank you. There's a word for fear of death. Adam mentions it in his book, and I have this fear. The word begins with a T, but I cannot seem to memorize that word. That's how scared I am of it. So my relationship with death has always been one of denial. And when I look at this now, I'm thinking, why not just wait and deal with this when I die? But I realized that by being scared of death, I was scared of life. And I could feel that thread running through my whole life, like, and never giving anything 100%. I'm always pulling back on something. And that brought me to the workshop. When I saw it advertised, I knew that this was the time. Like, if not now, when? And that's where I met Adam, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much, Nicola. Jacinth, can we go over to you, please?
Everyone, I'm Jacinth and I'm the founder of The Bias Cuts, which is the first age-inclusive online fashion boutique, and the movement Ageism is Never in Style. And I started the business after growing saddened at seeing women like my mum being increasingly alienated by the fashion industry as they got older. So we've been going 5 years, and as a whole, we're all about fighting ageism in fashion, but as throughout society as well.
Thank you, Jacinth. And Simon, are you there, please?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name's Simon Chinnery. I'm 60, I've just turned 60, and I don't feel anywhere near ready to face my mortality, but I do enjoy the sense of that kind of dance between getting a bit older and my body telling me I'm a bit older and wondering what to do, and then realizing actually for me increasingly it's not about doing, it's about being, which I know sounds a bit trite and I will explain it a bit later, but yeah, a sense of kind of changing gear, and that maybe I've got something that I can share and give and be part of with other people, either men particularly, but men getting older, but also be some kind of light rather than a grumpy old sort of fizzling candle that to younger men and women coming up the line. So that's me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon. Claudius, could you go next, please?
Hi, good morning, one and all. It's great to be here. It's the first time I've ever participated in something like this, which is exploring, you know, one's understanding and feeling about living. And certainly I'm in tune with the agenda of living. I'm about life and living. I'm Claudius Hillerman. I'm now currently living in Brighton with my family. And I come to this, the attitude I come to this event with is that of one of faith. And also what informs my, what has informed my life to date has been as a political activist in the late 70s and right through to the early 90s. And so the combination of political activism, which has informed my attitude to my environment and myself and others, and also my faith, which is has equally informed my attitude to myself, others, and my environment. So that's what I bring to this, and I'm fascinated by and intrigued by Adam's book, The Power of Agents. What a powerful and almost obvious, on the face of it, simple exploration of ideas, but very profound. And I'm so pleased to be here. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Claudius.
Next up, Hermione, could you please share your introduction, please? You might need to unmute yourself.
Is Hermione there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm so sorry. Apologies. Yeah, my background is nursing and midwifery, and my destiny seems to have taken me to the bookends of life. Really the two most intense and profound, but potentially beautiful moments in life. Over the last 10 years, through an organization that I set up called Living Well, Dying Well, I set up an end-of-life doula training, and my focus has been really to create opportunities for people to explore the subject of death and dying. I passionately believe we are the way we're born and the way we die is a hugely important human event, and I think they require our full participation. So I hope to talk a bit more about that in a moment.
Great, thank you, Hermione. And if we could have Aaron introduce himself, please.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Aaron Swartz. I'm 62. I'm a psychotherapist and work with trauma with people. And I suppose I'm dealing with this issue every day of my life with people, just the stuff that comes up that kind of prevents one living to the full, which I kind of think is the way I look at it is trauma. Actually, that's the thing that's preventing us on some level. That's a gross generalization, of course. I mean, for myself, I was an actor for many years, and I was in an industry where, you know, what one looked like was really important, and I've sort of struggled with that in terms of the changes that happens to the body and how that affects my own experience of myself. And I'll probably say more about that later, but it's great to be here.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, we'll definitely be hearing more about that later. Jiggy, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello. Yeah,
Hello.
my name is, you can hear me, can't you?
Yeah.
My name is Jiggy Bore. It's a foolish name given to me fairly soon after I was born to rhyme with my sister's nickname, Miggy. And my real qualification for being here is that I am old. And I first was frightened of death when I was about 14. And I expressed this in a drama class. And the teacher went, "Frightened of death? You can't be, you're only 14. And I felt really quite ashamed, but that was the reality. But like Claudius, I come now from a position of faith, of Buddhist practice, and I had a wonderful role model in my mother, who lived to 87. I was with her when she died, and my mother-in-law lived to 92, and I was with her when she died, and so I no longer have that fear. That's me.
Great, thank you, Jiggy. Garth, please, would you introduce yourself? Garth, are you there? Yeah.
Oh, that's better. Yeah, hello, my name's Garth, and I met Adam, who is the focal point of all this, and he's the guy that wrote the book, The Power of Aging. And I met him many years ago because he was helping to teach my son, who had a very severe illness, and I thought he might die. He was teaching my son how to just be and live and be happy through the reading of great literature and the talking about it. And bit by bit, he survived and is doing very well now. And although I've never really had the fear of death as such, I do think that when I really think about it, the fear of death is, for me, something that was brought so clear to me when one of my first sons died many years ago, and it just rocked my whole life and sent ripples and explosions through our whole family. And it's something about, for me, it's not so much fear of death, but somehow transforming all the adverse conditions that we experience in life into something that is uplifting, or something that has love about it, or gratitude, or something more positive. And I suppose over the years I've been working on that kind of an issue, how to transform adverse conditions into the path. And I think for me it all comes down to reframing. Being
great, that's great.
Change it all. So that's me.
Thank you, Garth. Thank you. We'll come back to that later on, that reframing. That's really important, and transformation and stuff. If we can have Richard introduce himself now, please.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me? Give a thumbs up. Oh, cool. I was really interested in what you're saying, Garth. I was just thinking about framing it up. I mean, I find okay, my name's Richard Hawley. I'm an actor, and I'm working at the moment. I live in Brighton, and I work up in Manchester. I work on Coronation Street, which is an incredible privilege. And just thinking about this, listen, sorry, this is a joke, really. There's another, this is 60 years of Coronation Street. It's 60 years old. And I went there 5 years ago, and I thought, what is it going to be like to grow old on Coronation Street? And it's a really strange experience, but I'm very grateful to it. I think one of the things that's, this has already excited me, one, seeing and realizing that there's a bunch of amazing people here now to talk together about this over the next few, whatever, years. So it's already kind of helped me frame up each decade and think what a powerful pile of stuff has actually gone on. I have got something to contribute and to work with myself. And, you know, very quickly, that's kind of it, really. Oh yeah, no, the most important thing is I do feel, I'm 65 now. I didn't really expect to get here. I know it's a kind of cliche joke, but you know, I am grateful and I'm in wonder and awe. But during my 50s, that was a really hard time. My dad died, a lot of my friends died. I had a breakdown, and more than anything, I think that's become something that now I feel like I'm on the brink of genuine age, and I've got a lot of stuff to work with. So I'm really excited to be here today.
Great, thanks, Richard. And finally, then, if we could have Karen introduce herself, please.
Hello, everyone. It's amazing to be here. Thank you, Adam. I know Adam through our shared Buddhist practice, and to do with aging, one of my former careers was as a fashion model, and I wrote an article about it a couple of years ago for The Observer, which was about, is it true that you can do classic modeling? Because I think that's one of the areas where there's a lot of pressure to look young in that industry. So that's something I might talk about later. The thing I do now, though, is I'm one of the directors of a football club where I live in Lewes, where it's a very collaborative, interdependent setup, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, is kind of moving from, as Adam describes so well in his book, The Power of Aging, from dependence to independence to interdependence, which is something wonderful that I think happens as we grow older. So there are two kind of things that I would like to talk about later associated with aging. In terms of death, I don't actually feel scared of death, and I think that's because I've had a life-threatening illness in the past and nearly died, and because of my Buddhist practice in relation to that. But I do feel very sad about the prospect of this life ending, because I love my life. And that's it. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Karen. And I think actually, Karen, I think we should get the ball rolling with you, if that's all right, in terms of talking about your experience. I know you want to talk about the article and stuff. Are you happy to do that, Karen?
Yeah, happy to do
that.
Great.
So we're now going to come into our first conversation, and we're really looking at where are we now. So yeah, that'd be great, Karen, if you'd like to share some reflections on that theme.
Yes, well, where are we now? So to be honest, right now in my life, I'm being really honest, I'm all right with aging. I'm almost 53, which is probably quite something to say as a woman, because there's a lot of pressure on me to buy anti-wrinkle products and, you know, bunion correctors, and I don't know, I don't know if you get these adverts. I get loads of these adverts all over my social media telling me basically that I've got to correct myself because I'm aging. So I actually find this quite amusing. that's been my approach to aging as a woman for some time now. As I said, I was a model when I was younger, and I think there I learned to disassociate from the way I look. I knew that as a person, I wasn't the same as my image, and my image was sold. And that was fine with me because I needed the money. But so I think that's been a very useful sort of way to think about the way I look as I've grown older as a woman. I do think there's more of a social pressure on women as they age to stay youthful. And I think it's where, if you like, ageism and sexism intersect. It's definitely difficult in the media, fashion, acting, someone mentioned acting industries, which have so much to do with physical appearance, and the judgment that women get is so much harsher. It's all right for all you silver foxes with your blue twinkly eyes out there that is 60, 70, but if you're a woman, it is harder. The decision to go grey, for example, is a decision. It's not something that you casually do usually. So I don't know. So that's something that when I wrote my article, it was to check out whether it was true that you could make money in the modelling industry as a classic model. And classic models are models who are over the age of 35 in the modelling industry. And there was this idea that there was suddenly this boom in the, I think they're called the silver market. So women who have aged to a certain degree have maybe silvery hair, but money in their pockets. And advertisers wanted to advertise to this market and really basically get their money. And they were thinking that maybe 17-year-olds advertising clothes for this particular market wasn't going to cut it any longer. So they were using older models. And the idea was that there was lots of work for older models. So I went along to an agency called Mrs. Robinson, and I did indeed get taken on for a little while. And then they dropped me because I apparently couldn't do different eyes in different pictures. I can, look. Well, maybe I can, maybe I can't, right? But anyway, it was a really interesting experience. And then the Observer asked me to go to another agency, Models One, to see if I could make it there. And they explained to me that actually they were about re-establishing older models' careers. And it was only models who had had massive, Vogue covers when they were young with Avedon, with BOYLE or whoever, that they could re-establish now. And it wasn't your average woman that they could, or your average model that they could take and use, because there just wasn't the work. So it was a bit of a myth that was being created, that there was actually, that society was re-looking at this idea of aging as something positive and something that they could use to sell products. It was only the much older models with grey hair, still looking fabulous, obviously, but who were actually in their 70s usually, or 60s, that could get back into Vogue and disrupt the narrative of youth. And the disruption was the thing. It wasn't your average 40, 50-year-old woman who could get in there and still advertise, because it wasn't disruptive. It was just a bit tired and stressed and old looking. So
great, thank you, Karen. Can I just, that's great. Can I just bring Jiggy in on that for a moment as well? Because I had a conversation with Jiggy the other day talking about the invisibility of older people and older women in particular, particularly in certain industries. Jiggy's in an industry not dissimilar to modeling. She's an actor. So Jiggy, would you be happy to say something about that as well?
Happy to, yes. Yes, it's interesting because Jamie and I were talking about this, and I said that for many of my friends who were very beautiful when we were young, aging has been very difficult because, like you say, there's not much work, and if you're not Judi Dench or Maggie Smith, you're not going to get a job. But it hasn't been so bad for me because I was what was called a character actress, which meant that you were kind of funny looking, really. And so my agent years ago, when I met Adam, used to say to me, darling, you won't make it till you're past 40. And I used to think, well, how am I going to live till then? But in fact, and then my agent, who's just gone out of business, actually used to say, don't dye your hair, don't dye your hair. And so I've been sent up for endless old lady parts. And eventually I had to say to her, I know I'm old. I hope I'm a lady, but I'm not a little old lady, although I am very short. And so I would get to the audition and there would be just a row of little old ladies with permed white hair and crimpling. And of course, I never got the job. Never got the job. So there are, you know, classic stuff about being old. And now I've just sort of, you know, I don't dye my hair, of course I don't. And I cheerfully go up for these things. But this thing about being invisible, I was saying to Jamie, is actually quite an advantage. You know, you don't get looked at, thank you. I don't like inviting stares. I can wear whatever I like down the street. I can wear my pajamas. I can put, you know, a coat over my pajamas and go out shopping. It's fine. Nobody will see me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a blessing.
That's great. Thank you, Jiggy. So what you're saying is there's benefit in aging in terms of you care less about what people think about you?
Yes, you care less, but it's not even so much that you care less about what other people think about you. The danger is what you think about yourself. And that has shifted for me through my Buddhist practice, is gaining confidence in who I am inside, and rather than the external. And again, Adam's marvelous book really encouraged me that I could just be me, whatever that is, you know.
Yeah. Great. I'd be interested to hear a male perspective on this now, having just whilst we're sticking within those industries somewhat. So, Richard, are you there? Richard?
Yes. Ooh, what? Talk
Hello.
about health and acting. Yeah.
How have you found it? Yeah.
You were talking about aging on Coronation Street before.
Yeah, well, that's the lucky bit. You know, for an actor, that's the lucky bit. I'm very lucky. I've got a job there. Most of the life, if you're going to try and make a living from this job, is quite hard. It's always about trying to get work and spend a lot of time unemployed and wondering if you have any use to anything. Well, all those doubts creep in. I mean, in a way, I feel quite well equipped for going on with my life into old age. I do think that they're, you know, having learned some stuff, small amount, about rites of passage, maybe it's a moment worth marking, but my whole life, when I'm thinking about it, really has just been like a series of kind of crashed rockets, really. You know, kind of something amazing happens, then I'll crash and burn, and then there's another one take off. And I suppose a kind of metaphor would be climbing up a mountain, then falling back a bit or something. But that is a process I've always been used to. And actually, I suspect we all have, really. When you divide your life up into decades, have a look at it, you'll go, there's loads of that drama going on. So this is just more of that. So I'm fascinated by it. Look, in terms of our businesses, I mean, life is hard for everyone in many ways. But when we get the opportunities, those are the things that we can build with as well. So that's it, really. I'm looking forward to learning just to keep on going how to be old, actually, and sharing it. And I'm looking forward to it. I've always quite liked times of unemployment, because they've been the times when actually I get most creative and hungry, because I have to find a way of making a living. I've been fascinated by little moments of pain and change in my body, because I hadn't even realized those things worked so well once.
So what, it's only so it's only when things start to fail us that we appreciate how complex and intricate, talking about the human body, how amazing that is.
Yeah, and we're not beyond working on it, revisiting it, you know, making what resources we have, which are huge. Most of it feels like, as I say, kind of crashed rockets and burnt bonfires, but you know, they are all memories, they are all experiences that I suppose this is the moment maybe where I've got this, spending a lot of time trying to be better at whatever, I am as a human being, as a, you know, and then kind of slightly failing, and then you come back, try again. So I wonder whether, you know, I want to stop trying to get better at everything and feel some kind of ease with it, because I do feel that's something useful I can take into the next few decades, is actually a sense of strength that, you know, kind of, I get a lot of anxiety. I've always had anxiety in this world, you know, whether I'm working or not. So you know, to be cheerful and not anxious about everything, but still to, you know, to look for practical ways of living.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
I agree. I think I'd like to bring in Jacinth now. Get your perspective on your background and where this conversation is going. Jacinth, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello. Yeah, it's an interesting one because, so, you know, all cards on the table. I'm 28, so I'm coming at this from a millennial perspective, and obviously, as I say, I work in fashion, so everything that Karen's saying really resonates with my experiences. I think something that, you know, I get a lot of asked a lot of the time is, you know, is the fashion industry still ageist? We're seeing all these older models. Surely that means everything has changed, when actually, as Karen points out, there is it's a very specific type of older model that we're seeing, and you know, very often they're tall, slender, long grey hair, beautiful women, but there's a real lack of diversity. And we also sort of see a very tokenistic approach where you have one older model and then suddenly it's, there you go, that ticks that box. We're catering to all people over 50, rather than recognizing the diversity amongst people over 50. And also, you know, we're talking about, we mentioned actors, and you know, some people have said to me, I love Helen Mirren, but I'm really fed up with her being the person to represent me as a woman over 50. You know, she's what, she in her 70s, or I think, and then there's Jane Fonda is the other one, you know, it's in her 80s. They're amazing, but why should I relate to them? I'm in my 50s, and certainly as somebody who's in my 20s, I wouldn't be marketed to with somebody in their 40s or 50s and expected to be able to relate to them. So why suddenly, once you get over the age of 50, you're expected that, well, everyone gets understood. I think also what's interesting, you know, talking about a physical, I mean, I've had some, I had quite a bad back injury about 6 years ago. So that certainly, and I felt pretty untouchable until then. And that's been quite an interesting experience. I remember thinking to myself when I was younger, I did a lot of dance and I didn't really take care of my body. And I always sort of thought to myself, oh, this is going to be a future Jacinth's problem, you know, 20, 30, 40 year time, she can deal with it then. And then lo and behold, I hit 21 and got my injury. So that was quite a sobering moment. And equally, I mentioned to you earlier, one of my closest friends died when I was 17. So again, she died of cancer, and that whilst she was ill for a couple of years, that was a very well, it was a life-changing moment for me in terms of perspective. But I think that, you know, those are experiences that a lot of people my age haven't gone through. And, you know, I talk to a lot of people my age who are feeling probably quite untouchable. They don't want to really deal with aging. I think there's also this pressure from society that essentially, unless you're 30, until you hit, you know, you're gonna fail, you know, all these sort of 30 under 30 things. And even I feel it, you know, I feel a bit like, oh crap, I've not been in Forbes 30 under 30. Does that mean I'm going to be a failure if I don't do anything until then? And I think there's a lot of pressure. And I think actually there are people who are younger, my peers, who are wanting to see older people to be their role models, and are actually wanting to feel, actually, no, it's okay, I can get older. There's life beyond, you know, being a 20 something. And so I think that's something that gives me hope. I think it's just in media and in fashion and marketing and acting, maybe they haven't quite cottoned onto that quite yet.
No, that's great. Thank you. Because also it seems to me that the world is geared very much towards youth, and you know, there's so much currency put on the youth, and in many ways, without wanting to alienate any younger viewers, youth is perhaps wasted on the young a little to some degree. But yeah, maybe that's where, you know, that market's so huge. But as we grow older as a society, then that market as well, because I'm talking about the commodification of things, and and so it's everything. Let's focus on the youth. Let's focus on the youth. I'm interested your experience. So at the age of 17 to have a friend die, that's not something you wouldn't expect for a young person. Obviously, young people do die, but that must have been quite a profound experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I had a breakdown, and I was very driven. I was very academic. I had had an offer to get into Cambridge to study law. That had always been my goal. I was fortunate that I literally, by the skin of my teeth, got through and got into Cambridge with my grades. But I had a complete meltdown, and I just didn't want to do anything. To be honest, I look back, I probably should have taken a year out to recover from the experience, it's just over 10 years ago now. But it totally changed everything. I think from somebody who had just had all these milestones in my life, I had to hit this, I had to hit that, as I was a very, very driven person. And I remember teachers saying to me, you're more driven than people I know. And then suddenly this experience sort of hit me in the face. I didn't know how to deal with it. To be honest, I'm still grieving. It's taken me, 10 years to really process it and understand it. And I still don't completely. But I often think about my friend every day, and, what she could have done if she was my age now. And it does give you a real sense of perspective.
Can we unmute?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. I think now might be a good time actually to bring Hermione in. Hermione, are you there? Because I'm just interested. You do a lot of work around people dying, and presumably of all sorts of ages. But there is this idea in society that that if you're elderly, I know someone was talking earlier. Jiggy was talking earlier about her mother and her mother-in-law being at this age, and that saying that we all know, what a great innings, or something like that. That somehow there's less tragedy around a death if someone is older, if they've been able to live their life fully. What do you think about that, Hermione?
Oh, I think in some cases that's absolutely true. And I think it's very dependent on that individual. I think some people live their life to the full. They've journeyed inwardly. They recognize that death is part of the story and have come to terms with it in some way. And I think people can be reconciled to this mysterious thing, this transition that we call death. But I think for a lot of people, that isn't the case. Maybe life is too compelling, and we don't have the time or the inclination to reflect on that reality, that death awaits us all at some point. We don't have anything set up in society. Well, we do now actually with death cafes, but it's not really socially acceptable to talk about death and dying. And if ever I'm at a social gathering of some kind and I meet someone new, they ask me what I do, I usually give them a warning. This could be a conversation stopper, because I work with the end of life and death and dying, and it's something that's I think hugely important for us all to engage with, because when we are so removed from it, as we are currently in society, where there are gaps in our knowledge or gaps in our experience, that's where the fear comes in. If we're not encountering it in a natural, ordinary way. And unfortunately, most of what we see, because death has been removed from the home into the hospital, most of what we see is on television or in films, and it's not a realistic representation. And I think particularly with reality TV now, we're being conditioned as a society to believe that we can cheat death. So it's something I'm so passionate about, that to bring people to a place where they're informed, and when we're informed, we're empowered, and when we're empowered, we can make choices.
Absolutely. I think this segues really nicely into our next conversation, which is about where we want to be. And this topic that we're talking about now, Jamie was speaking to Garth last night. And earlier Garth was talking about reframing these questions, especially around death and aging and the transformative nature of that. Garth, would you like to come into the conversation now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, it's such a big topic, this. It seems to me that, I mean, everybody, we've all faced dreadful things that happen in our life, and how to handle them. The facts are there. We can't say these things didn't happen. They happen, and other bad things will happen too. But I remember reading that wonderful book, Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. And I thought to myself, my God, how can a man who was incarcerated for 27 years, being tortured and punished by guards, finally come out of it and forgive? And it got me thinking about, how do you transform adverse conditions into a path of happiness, or at least well-being, so it doesn't tear you down? And I've been a Buddhist for many years, and you know, at the beginning of the path they say, well, you got to think about death, and in the middle of the path you got to think about death, and then at the end of the path you got to think about death. So the more I got into this, I realized that actually it very much is about transforming our attitude to the things that happen to us. And in doing so, how we transform the way we live now. So I think, you know, thinking about death is not a morbid thing. I think it's a really exciting thing.
Great, thank you, Garth. Can I bring Hermione back in on that, because that ties in with what Hermione was saying earlier about, you know, that she meets people and perhaps discusses her job. And Hermione, is it with that? Is it that people always, they don't want to talk about, as you said, death now is left in the hospices, it's left in the hospitals, it's sort of pushed away, don't want to think about it. Death is something that happens over there. I'm still alive, I'm okay. So do you find those attitudes that they're unhelpful perhaps, but what have you always been comfortable around death, Hermione?
Well, I certainly wasn't comfortable as a young nurse. I was very frightened and prayed every day that I wouldn't have to encounter it when I went to work. And it's only with my own, you know, personal maturing process, my personal development and spiritual journey, that have helped me become more comfortable with it. But interestingly, when I am in those conversations, in social situations, people react in two ways. One is that they might skirt away and they don't want to engage. They're not curious about what I do. But very often, I would say 80% of the time, people immediately start to tell me stories of deaths of people who've been close to them. And it's for me, it feels as though if we open up the space and communicate in some way, I'm okay talking about death and dying. Somehow it gives permission for people to be able to share their deepest pains and sorrows and questions. Was this normal? Should that have happened? Could I have done anything differently? So just opening up the space for conversations, I think it's crucial that we do that for each other, with each other.
It sounds to me like that seems to be quite a position of privilege that you inhabit then, if people are able to open up in that way to you about something they wouldn't normally talk about.
I completely agree. And I really hold that very sensitively and carefully. But also what people don't know is that to be present at a death is the most extraordinary privilege. And the deaths of people close to me, of course, and people that I've worked with, it's unfailingly awesome. Whether it's a smooth transition or a peaceful death, or one that's full of challenge and laboring, as a birth might be, it's always a privilege. There's something extraordinary that happens in that liminal space, we call it, that between space.
That's great. Thanks, Hermione. Claudius, are you there?
I'm very much and listening with great interest and fascination.
Great. Did you have something you wanted to bring into that, or anything around that in terms of what you were talking about earlier, your faith and stuff?
Well, even interesting what the point Garth has made. I actually made a note of it, which is that he said something about transforming the things that happen to us. And I'm not sure what he fully means by that, but what it got me thinking about, Adam's book, The Power of Aging, is such a wonderful intervention for us to think about how we're living and to utilize this wonderful life we have, that is the fact of life, and to how we can explore to get the most out of how we live, regardless of us being 75 or 25. I think that's the interesting and curious. It's a curious, but an interesting and I think quite profound point of a lot of the ideas that are explored in Adam's book. And I'm really glad that this is a kind of celebration of that. And it's a wonderful thing you've done there, Adam. I really thank you so much for the thoughtful way that you've set about this and to have us sing, because the thing, how we think about how we live is so important. And I've come to that I suppose in the last, 25 years of my life, about thinking about how I live my life. Because at one stage it was about but acquiescing, because I was young and, I'm never going to die, and all the world is wonderful and I'm healthy. And my particular circumstances were fortunate. I have brought up with a good family. My brothers and sisters are all alive and healthy. It's like when I reflect on that now, I think it's so wonderful that my life has been so fortunate and not engaged with a lot of the struggles and problems and obstacles and tragedies that a lot of people in this world have. So when I reflect on my personal fortunate position, I am now thinking, what is it? How do I live? And I think just looking at Adam's book was fantastic in helping me to answer that question. I just want to, if it's just one point, I mean, I don't know if everyone's read the book, but what I have read it. And there was an interesting point Adam made about survivors, that we're at this stage, those of us who've come like a stage 3 of our lives are survivors, which I found, which struck me, and I thought, am I a survivor? Am I the last person? Have I been left standing? That's in terms of how I understand being a survivor. And I don't think so. I think the challenges and tragedies and obstacles that we engage in with life, for me, is my life. It's how I kind of fortify myself to deal with it. So it's not like it's about not just surviving, it's about how I deal with living. And it's for me, the question now at this stage in my life is, how do I deal with living and as Adam correctly identifies, in this interconnected way? Everything and everyone for me has some effect on me, and I like to think I want to have an effect on them in some kind of positive and creative way. So those are
brilliant, Claudius. But you've just brought us right up to the break, and that last sentence is exactly where we want to be for the next conversation about how do we get to where we want to be. So you've summed that up perfectly. So people can keep that in their minds now. I think we all need a bit of a leg stretch, a cup of tea, take a comfort break. We're going to go to video.
Yep, there's some video and some slides that'll be shown during the break, which will be just five minutes long, and we'll stick to that 5 minutes, please, Ben.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we'll come back. We're aware a few people haven't spoken yet. You definitely be first up after the break, that's for sure. And we'll be bringing other people back in. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
You're
you.
all nearly an hour older than when you started this conversation, and we'll see you in 5 minutes.
Normal, cariño mío, ¿cómo no va a emocionar? ¿Y tú no emocionas a nosotros? Bailando también. Hay que coger la punta, ¿verdad? Exacto. Eso es más pierna. Madre mía. Eso es.
Hello, are we back?
We are back.
Fantastic, thank you, Ben. So that video was, if anyone is unfamiliar with it, so the lady who has advanced Alzheimer's, and she had a career as a ballet dancer, and it shows the transformative power of music for her. She's been living a more and more reduced life in many senses, and there are opportunities for transformative moments, even in extreme conditions and old age of life. So I think we'll hand over to Adam now.
Adam, can we hear from you for a moment, please?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. The power of aging, I feel a bit like I've just taken I've just taken bits of other people's teachings, really, and put it together because I needed to do it for myself, because I'm 71 now, and I know I'm facing various challenges, and I can see that through some of my teachers and people that have really helped me in the past, who I acknowledge in the book, including Hermione, Michael Boyle and Shivan, these people have helped me understand somehow that I have this inner power that I didn't actually need when I was young. This inner power really is wisdom, compassion, but more than anything else, it's courage. I know I need courage as I get older. And I need to find that courage. I need to explore it, because what I want to do as I get older is not to get smaller, but to expand. I want to open up. So part of, and we'll talk with Aaron and Nikki in a minute, because they did the workshop, but what it's really about is us using these powers that perhaps when we were younger, we didn't need, or it needed in a different way. So I talk quite a lot about intention, having a life intention. This is an intention that goes from this moment in time to the final breath. And this is a lot of the kind of work that I'm really interested in. And my life intention, writing the book, I had to make a life intention for myself. And it was really, it took me a long time to do. It took me months and months of scribbling stuff. My life intention now my life intention is to be open and courageous in order to bring healing and joy to myself and others. So that's and that will serve me now and on my deathbed. I can still be open. So yesterday I was looking in the garden, we've got some beautiful roses at this time of year, beautiful roses. And the way they stay open and the petals just flutter down, you know, and I can feel there's part of me that just wants to contract and get smaller as I get older. And I see it in old people's homes and care homes, how people become smaller. And so my aim for myself and anybody else that's interested in the journey is to stay open. And that takes courage. So I would like to, Nikki, we haven't still decided, but I know that you've had some experiences recently.
Yes. So when I read a draft of your book, I felt that someone was writing about me, my life, and it, you know, it just resonated so deeply, and especially the bit about the life intention. And when I read your life intention, you know, to be open and strong in order to bring healing and joy to myself and others, I cried when I read that, because I realized that actually that's what I wanted as well. And that was quite some way down the line from when I attended the workshop. So I attended a first workshop with you, and on the first day we had an exercise, and you asked us all to write down 3 positive things about aging, and then we went around the room and everyone had things to say, positive things, and we went around the room and I held up my piece of paper and it was blank. I couldn't think of a positive thing. To me, aging was all about loss. Everything was about loss. My youth, my eyesight, my energy, you know, no time to have a new career. It was just loss of everything, and that's how I came into the workshop. And then I did a second workshop with you. There was something about being with others, people of my own age. It just felt really healing. And then when I read the book, it was the life intention that you spoke about that had the biggest impact on me. And I thought, yes, this is, I need a purpose. And I think Garth mentioned about reframing. And I just thought, I need to restart the clock in the present. I have to stop thinking about the past and what I've lost, because I'm missing out now on the future. And so I realized I had to start at this point, as if today was the first day. And so with this new kind of enthusiasm on this life intention, I just threw myself headfirst into something I've been thinking about doing for a while, and that's being a volunteer. I'm really interested in the whole autism area, and I started volunteering for a charity in Brighton, and I've become a mentor, and that has brought me such joy. I feel such love for all these people that I'm in contact with, and you know, something shifted within me from just thinking about myself and my losses. I now feel this connection, really deep connection, you know, with these people that I'm helping. I feel such love, and that love has, you know, it's kind of mitigated the loss. I'm not looking backwards. I'm now looking forward, and that's changed.
Great, thank you, Nikki. That's interesting. That the interconnectedness of everything, and being involved and volunteering, and that we're all in this together as human beings. And there's something about service and being altruistic, and that helps give us value and meaning to our lives. And one thing, there's the old joke, you know, you're guaranteed 2 things in life. 1, you're going to pay your taxes. 2, you're going to die. I can assure you the first one's not a guarantee. That's a joke. I pay my taxes. But we absolutely are all going. we're all going to die at some point. So so there's you know, that interconnectedness. Again, at this point, I'd like to bring Simon in as well, talking about sort of mentorship and eldership. Are you there, Simon? Is Simon there?
Yes, I am. Yep, I am. Sorry, it's rather beautiful. My carriage clock is just chiming, rather behind because it's now nearly 10 past 12, but chiming 12. And that says something about kind of a little bit of my perspective on things at the moment. I'm looking out the window at a 250-year-old copper beech, and we just had it pruned. And we think, I mean, it's quite ill. It's got some fungus growing, and you know, part of the advice we got was, well, you should chop it down for health and safety reasons. And we like to think that we're caretakers and trying to be of service to this beautiful, beautiful tree in the last stages of its life. And I'm absolutely no doubt this beautiful tree will outlive me. And so I suppose transformational is an interesting phrase. I feel like I am definitely in transition, and actually COVID, being at home a lot, I'm now working from home, has sort of given me a sense of real different perspective on life as it moves round through the seasons. And I find this really strange, you know, dichotomy, this push-pull between, I've had lots of stuff going on in my life, a lot of people dying, a lot of people I've really loved. I mean, the closest was my oldest son, who committed suicide 3 years ago, more or less. And I, you know, there's a bit of me that's like, God, how much more, you know, how much more? And yet, you know, there's this fire in me that just goes, you ain't done yet, mate. And you've got a lot of stuff that you can give. And it's sitting on that kind of, you know, I call it sitting on the prickles, where it's like, it's not really clear what I'm meant to be doing. But as I said at my little intro, I'm getting, and I'm a very slow learner, but I am getting, it's something about being rather than doing. And being in this sort of liminal space, which has been referred to, and in that, stuff is going on. Not just that I'm getting older, but somehow I'm learning stuff, and I'm getting a little bit more wiser about a few things, whether I like it or not, really. And just as a final point, I guess that the thing that's most interesting me about this whole aging and this power is that it's a sense of, for me, it's something around being seen and seeing other older men and women almost kind of stepping into this space and being witnessed as, I'm not going to shrink, I'm not going to get small, as Adam said, I'm actually going to expand, and I'm going to fill myself with whatever that is. But for me, it feels like a sense of gratitude and a sense of wonder at this extraordinary, crazy environment, world that we live in. And somehow that is part of the transformational process. And in that, if I can be a little bit of help to a few people, even if it's just like, he's got a glimmer in his eye, you know, what's going on there, then that'll do. That'll do. And that will do.
Great. Thanks, Simon. That's interesting, that, because I think we have a tendency, especially in the UK, to push the elderly out of the way. You know, it's kind of put them in homes or whatever. Maybe in different cultures it's different, and certainly this idea of eldership, because of course the older you get, it should be the more wisdom you develop, and then you have a lot to offer to you know, to younger people, and there's lessons to be learned there, and you know, it goes beyond the superficial. There's so much learning. Aaron, are you there? Would you like to talk about the superficial, perhaps, in terms of growing older? I know that's something you wanted to talk about. Aaron, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I totally as you said, I would say was, not completely, attached to the superficial. So I still occasionally, you know, look into the mirror and think, oh God, if I just pulled that back, you know, I could probably get 20 years. And, you know, so it's still kicking inside me, that attachment to the surface. But I was struck by what Hermione said about that journey into the inward journey, that for me feels so necessary and so important to take from the superficial into the inner world that exists. And I thought of it may be the power of expansion, this thing called aging, because in a way, death is been happening all the time. I mean, I feel in many ways that I have died. You know, I mean, my whole persona, a lot of my kind of neurotic thinking, just all the identities that I've been attached to have been over as I'm moving away from, well, or trying to, or that's happening. That have died, and I'm discovering this inner world, which is extraordinarily expansive. And I think we need help to do that, because it's to many of us, it's a terrifying place to just to go deep into our inner world. So, and I think it is a terrifying place, and I think I meet people every day who are terrified of stopping and going into this state of beingness. And I'm glad we can have this conversation, because we don't have a culture which helps. We're left to our own devices. We're left to having to do this on our own. And if you don't know how to do it, what do? Well, you probably just keep watching TV or look at Facebook. But so this journey is really expansive. And yet, despite that, I wake up today with a toothache. And it really upsets me that, and I think we could talk so intellectually about this subject, but I still have this fear, you know, what happens when my body starts to really, when I really I'm not a toothache, but something else physical is gonna go on, where I have no, you know, I feel healthy, I feel well, but I'm sure there's many of us here today that maybe have something physically going on, and that really, you know, that, and when even my simple bloody toothache today makes me suddenly go into a state, oh my God, what, you know, I'm losing my health. And I don't have any answers to that, because I don't really know what it's like to sit and live with pain, that when your body is really kicking in and decomposing from within. And, you know, I just hope, my intention is that my inner world has expanded somehow beyond pain, and I can be with the pain simultaneously to some sense of lost connection or lost identity to the body.
Thanks, Aaron.
I'd love to hear other people who are dealing with pain right now.
Well, this is one of the things that's become apparent now, just in general, is we don't have much time left, and I would happily sit and talk with all of you all day about everything. This is such a broad, wide topic. Look, aging, we're all getting older all of the time, as we know, and we seem to have wandered into death, because that's the end game. You know, the older you get, the closer to death you get, if we have the privilege, indeed, to grow older and older and to age into long years. I wanted to just go back, because seeing as we are on it's gone towards death and stuff, I wanted to just go back to Hermione, and I think there's something in Hermione's experiences and in what she does for a living. Hermione, are you there?
Yes, here.
Hermione, I wanted to ask you, having been around death as much as you have, because of your you know, because of your job, your calling, perhaps, what's the most important thing death has taught you?
Oh, God. Well, you know, it comes unexpectedly at any time. So a lot of our conversation today, we've recognized that it's not just about the trajectory at the end of a long life. It can happen anytime. I think the key thing for me is about my own preparation, my own willingness to be present with the prospect of death at any second. You know, things can turn on a sixpence, and in this COVID year, we've all been confronted with that on a huge scale. But I think if we, for me, if I can stay with the fear, stay with my anxiety about what that process of death might be, and accept the little deaths in life, learn to handle the smaller deaths of letting go of material things or letting go of a status or whatever it may be. If I can really engage and learn about those things, I may be in a better position to let go of life itself when the time comes.
Wow. Thanks.
Right. Yes.
No. Thanks for that, Hermione. So it's about conscious aging. Adam, that's a phrase that you've used a lot. Can we talk about conscious aging? And I think that ties in a bit with what Hermione is saying, to have this awareness of death, that it could come at any moment. And that seems to tie in a bit with conscious aging, perhaps, Adam?
Yeah, well, it's certainly, it's an opportunity to really enrich my life, because, you know, my first 40 years were fairly, I mean, they were good fun. They were a little dangerous at times. But there was absolutely no depth at all into anything that I did. I did very little. You know, I did my best, but I think in the last, certainly since I did Hermione's Living Well, Dying Well course, we did an exercise which was visualizing your own death. And I think it took probably an hour or a couple of hours. You did it in pairs. And I remember coming home after doing that exercise, and I felt as though I'd had a rucksack full of stones on my back all of my life, until I got into my kitchen at home, and I just felt this expansion in my life. I'd actually looked at something that was always present, but I'd always ignored. And I found it such a release. And I feel that I want to really engage in that. And as Hermione says, I want to, you know, this sense of loss and identity and, you know, connection, interconnection. These are key things for me in my life. And, you know, Hermione says, we don't know when this is going to happen. We have no idea. And I want, and the other thing that Hermione said was it's an important moment. So, you know, Woody Allen said, you know, I don't mind dying as long as I'm not there when it happens. And this is how many people think. They don't want to be there. They want to be tranquilized. They want to be, you know, so I think I do want to be there when it happens. And that's a big thing for me, to be at my death when it happens. It's a brave thing, but I think it actually empowers my life right now by taking on that, rather than shrinking away from the end of life. I really want to embrace it, but I don't want to embrace it on my own. I mean, ultimately, of course, we're all on our own, but the great thing about death is it connects us. It's, you know, if we didn't have death, if we were immortal, we wouldn't bother going on Zoom. You know, why would you? You know, it's what gives us our connection. our mortality. So embrace it and really live life to the full right now, and really enjoy it. And I feel that's what I want to do. And I want to do it with other people, you know, yeah, I want to share it.
Great, thank you. So there's something then in the old adage, live every day as if it's your last, which is easy to grasp as a concept, but to put into practice is slightly more difficult, I think. Yeah.
Karen would like to speak.
Karen, please.
Yeah, I just want to say how much I relate to that, and also the question that Claudius asked. He asked, how do I deal with living? Which is an important question. And I think, you know, because I did have a life-threatening illness in my 20s and thought that I was told I could die any night with a bleeding to the head, basically, and I was expecting to die. But I didn't, and it's a long story, I won't go there. But what it taught me was, well, what is my purpose in this world? I really had to ask myself, what am I even here for? And I came to the conclusion that it wasn't just about me, it was about everybody. I was part of everybody, everybody was a part of me, not to get too hippie-ish on a Saturday morning, but that was the conclusion that I came to. And I really think that as we age, we sort of, like, you know, I think Nikki was saying, we come to a point in life where it's kind of volunteering sometimes, or working for others, or being an elder, taking on a role where other people look up to you in some way, that can give us so very much by us giving. And I'm in my role at the moment, I'm, as I say, a director of a football club. I'm a woman doing it. That's unusual. So I get a lot of young women who tell me that you know, they write to me and say that they, you know, I helped them drive forward in what they were doing, and it's incredibly you know, I feel incredibly privileged to hear these things. But also I want to say that when you're doing something for a higher purpose, as it were, to give, you get so much courage automatically. You just, because you forget about yourself and you think, I'm doing it for this other you know, I'm on a mission, as Adam puts it, a life intention here, I'm on a mission. You take a holiday from your ego, which is so useful and enables you to do so much more. And this is what I'm just an ordinary person. And I've been speaking to the UN this year. I've done panels for 16 fire services at once. I've done all sorts of ridiculous things, really, that I would never have thought I'd do. And I only have the courage to do it and the, you know, the will to do it because I have a higher intention. I'm not about me anymore. Sometimes I am, but a lot of the time I'm not. What's the point of that? I want to live my life until I die. I want to, you know, really squeeze every moment to create value. So that's when Claudius asked, how do I deal with living? Well, that's how I deal with it.
Thanks, Karen. So there's something perhaps in us being taken out of ourselves, and maybe as we get older, maybe that becomes easier or becomes more evident to us. I'm aware of the time. We've got 2 minutes left, and this has been a great learning curve for myself and for Anna as well, and I'm sure for lots of people. Learn lots about aging, but also about this process, how it is possible to have these conversations on Zoom. So many guests, as I said, and I'd have loved to hear you all speak for a lot longer than you did. So I'm sorry if anyone feels there was something that they really wanted to say and they didn't get to say on this occasion. I know Adam doesn't really want us to plug the book or me to plug the book, but I'm going to. It's called The Power of Aging. Yeah, let's plug that. It's available on Amazon. That'll be all the details online and stuff. Get it? It's really good. It's really, really straightforward. Really, it's great clarity in your book, Adam, and I thank you for your clarity. Because knowing you as a friend, I don't find you always have clarity in real life, but I'm glad to find it in your writing, very much so. And now, so we've just got 1 minute left. So I want to just say thank you to all of the guests. Really, really, thank you very much. And to say, go on, Anna, you want to say something?
Yes, we just had a lovely message there saying that you enjoyed it. We really, really want feedback. This was the first pilot of this idea. We'd like to do monthly conversations starting in January. and working throughout next year, because I assume we're going to be using Zoom a lot more over the next coming months. So if you've got any feedback at all, please let us know what we did right, what was a bit grating, and we'll work on that and work with you further.
Yeah. That's good. We're getting some really nice
lovely
messages in.
messages.
Thank you.
If everyone wants to turn on their video now, only if you're happy for it to be recorded, that would be lovely, so we can see how many people we've got.
You can do that.
Smiling faces. You can do that now.
We've got 1 minute left to do that.
So the next date,
the next time we'll be doing something like this will be January the 30th next year, 2021. It is 20. Yes. And we're not sure what we're going to be talking about yet, but I think there's more to be had out of aging and death as well, and all of this. The whole thing is sort of changing a crisis. Thank you all very, very much for joining us. Also, well done. We got to 72 minutes before COVID-19 was mentioned, and I think that's quite incredible with such a year it's been. That's it. We are 12:30 on the dot now.
Thank you,
so we're wrapping it up. So we'd like to say thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your year. Please, January the 30th, there'll be stuff going out about that at some point. We'd love to see you there.
We'll share the link to this recording as well. So
absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Adam, for writing the book.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.